Okay, let's unpack this. Think about, you know, a robot arm on an assembly line, or maybe picking stuff in a warehouse. What's it actually doing?
Hmm.
Well, it's using its hands, right? Specialized tools. Things like grippers, maybe welders, sensors, painting nozzles even. These aren't just little add-ons. They're called end-of-arm tooling, or EOAT for short. And honestly, they're absolutely vital to sort of unlock what a robot can really do. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the global market for this really critical tech. We've got this fantastic source of market data here from Cognitive Market Research. It shows all the trends, the projections. So our mission, let's slice through these numbers, these figures, and really try to understand what they're telling us about where robotics is actually heading. All based on this one source, mind you. Get ready. Because we're looking beyond just the robot arm itself. The real story might just be in its tools. So, okay, let's set the stage. The global picture, straight from this data, when we look at the worldwide market size for robotics EOAT, the source tells us it was 2,408.21 million. That's back in 2021. Then it's projected to climb, hitting $2,867 million by 2025, and then a pretty significant leap, actually, to 4,063.45 million by 2033. So yeah, a clear upward trend.
Yeah, and what's striking about those figures, I mean, beyond the jump from just over $2.4 billion to over $4 billion, it's that steady compound annual growth rate they cite, 4.456%. Based purely on that number, it really suggests that the adoption of robotics isn't hitting a plateau or anything. It seems to be consistently integrating, across industries globally. And importantly, it indicates companies aren't just buying the arms; they're increasingly investing in the specific tools, often more sophisticated tools needed to make those robots do more complex stuff, more specialized tasks. The hands are becoming a bigger piece of that investment puzzle, it looks like.
That steady curve, yeah, it really is telling, isn't it? Now, this source, it gives us a fantastic breakdown by region. We should probably start with the one it labels a powerhouse. That's Asia Pacific. And the APAC market, wow, it's immense. Starts at $883.813 million in 2021. It's projected to hit $1,057.92 million in 2025. And then it surges to $1,572.55 million by 2033. That's that. Adding nearly $700 million over the period. Just in APAC, looking at the countries within APAC listed here, China really dominates. It was $350.874 million back in 2021. Forecast is $423.169 million for 2025, and then a staggering $654.183 million by 2033. India shows incredibly strong growth too. Jumps from $161.738 million or so in 2021, growing to $161.3 million by 2033. Japan, substantial $97.7 million or so in 2021, growing to $161.3 million. All of them showing consistent growth from their 2021 numbers right through to 2033, pushing that regional total past $1.5 billion.
Yeah, the sheer scale and particularly the projected absolute increase in APAC, especially with China leading like that, it just suggests, based purely on these numbers, this is where high-volume manufacturing and rapid industrial automation are really having the biggest impact on the EOAT market. And that growth trajectory for India, you mentioned almost doubling its market size by 2033, according to this data. It kind of hints at potentially rapid automation adoption, maybe in emerging sectors or expanding industrial areas within India. It really underscores Asia's role, doesn't it, as that global manufacturing engine driving demand for these robot tools.
Okay, right. Shifting gears then, let's look at the North American market data provided in the source. So this puts North America at $633.359 million in 2021, climbing to $731.085 million in 2025, and projected to reach just under $1,999.609 million by 2033. The regional CAGR, it states, is 3.988%, and within North America, yeah, the United States has the lion's share, started at $502 million in 2021, forecast to hit $783.293 million by 2033. Canada and Mexico also contribute significantly. They show growth from $82.59 million and about $48.8 million, respectively, in 2021, up to $136.3 million and nearly $80 million by 2033.
Right, and comparing that North American AGR, the 3.988%, to the global 4.456%, it's solid growth, definitely, but it is a slightly slower pace overall, judging by these numbers. And the U.S. dominance within the region is just crystal clear from the market size figures. This difference in pace, compared to APAC especially, could suggest maybe a market that's a bit more mature in certain, say, traditional automation sectors.
Okay.
Automotive, which could lead to steadier, albeit still pretty substantial, growth in dollar terms. That's just inferring from the market sizes and KGRs we have here.
Okay, makes sense. Let's cross the Atlantic then, over to Europe. This data shows the market size there as $544.255 million in 2021, growing to $630.74 million in 2025, and expected to reach $881.768 million by 2033. Still a substantial market, right? Adding over $330 million in, just over a decade? And this source, it breaks out quite a few countries in Europe, which is interesting. Germany leads the region. Started at $101.231 million in 21, projected to grow to $173.708 million by 2033. The UK, Russia, and that collective rest of Europe segment. They also show significant growth trajectories, according to these figures. And then countries like France, Italy, Spain, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, even Luxembourg. They also contribute, all showing consistent increases from their 2021 figures up through 2033.
The data for Europe, shows a strong market, definitely led by Germany, likely reflects its, huge industrial base. And the detail listing out so many countries is quite interesting. While Germany shows the largest absolute increase in dollars, Russia's projected growth from about $67.5 million up to nearly $100 million. That also stands out in absolute terms within Europe, just looking at these figures. This kind of distribution across multiple strong markets, it suggests a pretty diversified adoption of automation across various European economies, potentially driven by different sector-specific needs, requiring a whole variety of EOT types.
Right, a more fragmented picture perhaps, but still strong overall. Okay, heading south now, South America. This market was $144.492 million in 2021, projected to grow to $200.69 million in 2025, and reach $288.505 million by 2033. Now, while it's smaller than the major regions we've discussed, the growth here looks pretty notable in percentage terms. Brazil clearly leads the way. Started at $49.56 million in 2021, forecast to hit $101.265 million by 2033. That's, more than doubling its market size. Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Chile. They also show consistent growth from their 2021 base figures right through 2033, adding to that regional total.
Interesting. The South American numbers, and especially Brazil's projected growth doubling its market size, it suggests maybe a market that's potentially in an earlier phase of rapid automation adoption compared to, say, North America or Europe, just based purely on the scale of these figures. That strong growth trajectory in Brazil might indicate perhaps increasing automation in key industries for that economy, scaling up relatively quickly, perhaps from a lower starting base compared to the global leaders.
Okay, moving east now to the Middle East. The data shows this market at $132.452 million in 2021, growing to $157.685 million in 2025, and projected to reach $203.173 million by 2033. Saudi Arabia leads this region, figures rising from $51.1 million or so in 2021 up to $79.19 million by 2033. Turkey, the UAE, Egypt, and Qatar also show growth from their 2021 base figures, according to this data.
Right. Based solely on the market sizes and growth rates provided here, the Middle East looks like another region showing steady, consistent growth in EOAT adoption, albeit, at a smaller overall scale than those major manufacturing hubs we saw earlier. Saudi Arabia's leading position in that solid growth, it could be indicative of maybe specific large-scale projects, or perhaps national economic diversification efforts that are incorporating automation, driving demand for the necessary robot tools.
Plausible. And finally, let's touch on Africa. This region shows $69.8 million, almost $70 million in 2021, $88.877 million in 2025, and projected growth to $117.84 million by 2033. South Africa actually has the largest market size in 2021 at $30 million, growing to nearly $50 million by 2033. But Nigeria's figures, starting around $17.4 million in 2021, they're projected to reach over $30 million by 2033. That's pretty strong growth in absolute terms for the region, and the rest of Africa segment also contributes significantly to the regional total here.
Yeah, the numbers for Africa suggest it's currently the smallest market in terms of absolute size among the regions covered in this data anyway. However, the consistent growth shown across South Africa, Nigeria, and the rest of the continent, it does indicate that investment in robotics and EOAT is definitely increasing. This could point to potentially nascent but developing automation markets, maybe focused on specific sectors, perhaps initial steps towards industrialization in various economies, just based purely on that upward trend in the figures.
Okay, so bringing it all back together now. Based on this data from Cognitive Market Research, we've kind of journeyed from a global market of over $2.4 billion to a projected over $4 billion. Which regions, which countries really stand out when you look at the sheer magnitude of growth, the dollar terms, between 2021 and 2033?
Okay, looking at that absolute change, From 2021 to 2033, across the regions, Asia-Pacific is projected to add nearly $700 million. That's huge. North America adds over $360 million, and Europe adds over $330 million. Those are really the engines of growth in sheer dollar value, according to this data. Then on a country level, Well, China's growth of over $300 million is just massive. The U.S. adding nearly $280 million, Germany adding over $70 million, and India adding over $140 million. Those are also huge contributions. And Brazil's projected doubling, as we noted, that makes it stand out, too, in terms of relative pace among some of the other developing markets listed here.
Yeah.
Right. And based purely on these figures, we've been looking at, the large market sizes in places like China, the US, Germany, and then those rapid growth trajectories in places like India and Brazil. What could these differences, the scale and the pace, what could they potentially tell us about the types of industries or maybe the levels of automation being adopted in these different parts of the world?
Well, based solely on the magnitude of the numbers and their growth, you can infer that the largest markets, they likely have these vast established manufacturing sectors, things like automotive, electronics, general industry,
Right.
where automation is already deeply embedded and just continues to expand. Whereas the faster growth rates, maybe in regions like India or South America, albeit often from a lower base, that might correlate with sectors that are rapidly automating for the first time, or perhaps large-scale projects, maybe in areas like logistics or infrastructure, resource processing, where robotics with specific tools are just becoming really viable now. The data essentially gives us the footprint, right, of where EOAT is being adopted.
Yeah.
And the scale kind of hints at the potential scale of the operations using them.
It really is fascinating to see this global market through the lens of, the tools robots use. We've seen the numbers from this source charting that path from $2.4 billion in 2021 to over $4 billion projected by 2033. It's a pretty clear indicator of the increasing reliance on intelligent automation worldwide.
Definitely. And as we think about that projected growth, exceeding $4 billion by 2033, here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. Based purely on the figures presented today, considering which regions and countries are driving the most significant absolute growth and that consistent global CAGR, which specific application of robotics do you think will be the single biggest type of driver for this overall expansion? In the robotics end-of-arm tooling market over the next decade, will it be assembly, welding, picking, inspection, something else entirely, just based on the scale of the numbers we've looked at?
Yeah, something to ponder as automation definitely continues its steady march forward. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the numbers shaping the world of robotic capabilities. We look forward to the next one.
Welcome to a deep dive. Today, we're zooming in, really focusing on just one part of the robot.
Right, not the whole machine, but the crucial part at the very end.
Exactly. We're talking robotics end-of-arm tooling, EOAT for short. Think of it as the robot's hand.
Or its tool,
Yeah.
yeah. The bit that actually does the work, gripping, welding, whatever it might be. It's the interface.
Absolutely. And we're basing our chat today on some insights from a cognitive market research report.
Looking at the trends, the drivers in the EOAT market specifically.
So our mission here is simple. Break down what EOAT actually is, why it's suddenly such a big deal, what's pushing the market forward.
And what's holding it back, too. Plus the cool new trends and who's who in the space.
All based on this report, boiled down for you so you can get up to speed fast.
Exactly. A quick, focused look at a really vital piece of modern automation. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. So first things first, what is EOAT fundamentally, and why is it getting so much attention now, according to this research?
Well, at its most basic, like we said, it's the gripper or the tool that bolts onto the end of the robot arm.
Okay.
But the key thing the report stresses is its role in making factories truly smart, flexible.
So it's more than just a tool holder.
Oh, definitely. Adaptable EOAT is apparently critical for that whole industry 4.0 vision,
Yeah.
turning factories into these dynamic automated hubs.
Gotcha. So it's about the versatility the right hand brings to the robot, fitting it into that bigger, smart factory picture.
Precisely.
Okay, that clicks. So what does the report identify as the main forces really driving the growth in this EOAT market?
Well, the big one, maybe not a huge surprise, is just the overall rise in demand for automation across the board.
Right, more robots needed generally.
Yeah, but the specific insight here is that it's automation needing robots to do more varied stuff, more complex tasks.
And that naturally requires more sophisticated EOATs, right?
Exactly. Better hands for trickier jobs.
And I guess this ties into something we hear constantly, labor costs and shortages.
Definitely. The report makes a clear link. Manufacturers are looking at automation, and specifically robots with the right EOAT.
To fill the gaps.
Yeah, to keep productivity up when, finding or keeping people for certain jobs gets tough or just too expensive.
Makes sense. What about cobots? Collaborative robots, they seem to be everywhere now. How do they fit in?
No, huge driver. The report highlights them specifically. Cobots are getting popular, especially with, say, smaller businesses.
Because they're more flexible, maybe cheaper.
Right, and they often work alongside humans, not always locked in a cage.
Okay.
So the report says this demands EOATs that are, well, different. They need to be lightweight, easy to adapt, and crucially, designed to be safe around people.
So a cobot's hand has totally different design constraints than a big industrial arms tool.
Exactly right. Safety is paramount. And there's just the sheer range of things AOTs can do.
Like what specifically?
Well, the report lists a bunch. Gripping, obviously, but also placing, welding, assembling parts, packaging, even things like quality checks.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just one type of task.
Not at all. And because it's used for so many different things across so many industries, that naturally fuels massive demand.
And the last driver mentioned in the report, something about customization, modularity.
Yeah, that's a big one too. Think about it, factories make all sorts of different products, different sizes, shapes, materials.
Right, one size fits all doesn't really work.
Exactly. So there's a big push for EOAT systems that can handle that variety. Tools you can swap out easily or reconfigure. That need for flexibility is really expanding the market.
Okay, so summing up the drivers, general automation boom, labor issues, the cobot surge, tons of different applications, and this need for flexible custom tools. That's a lot pushing it forward.
It is.
But surely it's not all smooth sailing. What does the report say are the main hurdles, the restraints holding things back?
Yeah, there are definitely challenges. The first big one mentioned is cost, the initial capital investment.
Always the money.
Right. Getting set up with like advanced or really customized EOAT systems, it can be expensive.
Which probably hits smaller companies harder.
That's what the report suggests, yeah. Makes it tougher for them to adopt the latest tech.
Okay, cost. What else? Is there an issue with, like, compatibility, different systems working together?
Spot on. The report calls out a lack of standardization. A lot of EOATs are still designed for, one specific robot brand or even just one model.
Proprietary tech headaches.
Exactly. So
Wow.
trying to integrate across different platforms gets tricky. You often need custom adapters or workarounds, which adds complexity and cost. Again,
Right. So cost, compatibility. What about the human element? Skills.
that's the third key restraint mentioned,
Yeah.
the skill gap. These tools, especially the smarter ones, aren't just plug and play.
You need trained people.
Absolutely. For setup, for programming, regular maintenance, calibration.
And if you don't have those people.
Well, the report suggests you risk using the tech inefficiently, maybe more downtime, or even misusing it, which hurts productivity. So, yeah, finding and keeping those skilled workers is a challenge.
Okay, so significant hurdles. High initial cost. Compatibility issues due to lack of standards and needing skilled people. But despite all that, the market's clearly growing and innovating.
Oh, absolutely.
So what are the exciting trends the report points to? What's shaping the future here?
One of the biggest, I think, is the rise of smart EOATs.
Smart how? Like with computers in them.
Kind of, yeah. They're being equipped with more sensors, vision systems, forced torque sensors.
So they can feel and see.
Exactly. And often they have IoT connectivity, so they're networked. Plus, increasingly, they're using AI.
AI in the robot's hand. For what?
For making real-time adjustments. Imagine a gripper that senses how fragile an object is and adjusts its grip automatically, or uses vision to pick items from a cluttered bin. It's about precision, adaptability, intelligence right at the point of contact.
Wow, okay, that's a serious upgrade from just a simple clamp.
It really is. Another big trend is using 3D printing.
For making the tools themselves.
Yeah, components for them. The report notes this speeds up prototyping like crazy. You can test designs much faster.
And I guess you can make custom parts easier. Lighter parts.
Exactly. Later components are a big deal, especially for cobots where every gram counts, and potentially more affordable too.
Makes sense. Lighter tools mean the robot can move faster or lift slightly more with its main arm. Clever. Where else are these EOATs popping up more? Any specific industries?
A huge growth area highlighted is e-commerce and warehousing. Logistics.
Because of all the online shopping.
Totally. Fulfillment centers are automating like mad, and EOATs are essential for all that high-speed picking and packing of orders.
Yeah, you can see how robot hands would be perfect for sorting packages and stuff.
Definitely. And interestingly, the report also mentions EOAT moving into less traditional sectors,
Like what?
like food processing, pharmaceuticals, even agriculture.
Really? Why those fields? What's the need there?
It often comes down to the need for very specific, delicate handling.
Gentle touch.
Yeah, and often sanitary handling, too. Think about easily bruised fruit or sterile medical packages. Traditional rigid grippers might cause damage.
So they need specialized tools,
Yeah.
maybe softer ones.
Exactly. So you're seeing development and adoption of these specialized, often soft EOATs designed specifically for those kinds of tasks.
That connects back to that customization driver we talked about.
It absolutely does. And one final trend the report calls out is the demand for quick change tooling systems.
So swapping hands quickly.
Pretty much, yeah. As factories get more dynamic, robots might need to do task A, then switch to task B, then task C.
And you don't want hours of downtime changing the tool each time.
Precisely. So systems that let you swap EOATs fast, sometimes automatically, are becoming really important for keeping things flexible and efficient.
Okay, so smart, AI-powered tools, lighter 3D printed components, booming use in logistics, moving into new areas like food and pharma, and quick chain capability. The future sounds very
It
adaptable.
really does.
So given all this activity, who are some of the actual companies the report mentions, the players shaping this landscape?
Sure, it highlights a few key examples. One is ASS end-of-arm tooling.
Okay, what's their angle?
Their thing seems to be this huge catalog, like over 2,000 standard mechatronic parts. It's like Legos for building robot hands.
So you can build your own custom EOAT from their components.
Kind of, yeah. It lets companies piece together really specific, customized solutions for all sorts of tasks, even complex stuff like quality inspection. They provide the building blocks.
Interesting, modular approach. Who else?
Then there's soft robotics. The name kind of gives it away.
Soft grippers.
Exactly. They specialize in these soft polymer grippers. Their M-grip system is mentioned, often paired with 3D vision and AI.
Ah, like we were saying, for delicate items.
Precisely. They're designed to handle things that are easily damaged or have weird, irregular shapes. Think food items, things in flimsy packaging,
Yeah.
stuff traditional grippers struggle with, makes them strong in, say, the food industry.
Right. That fits perfectly with the trend of entering non-traditional sectors needing gentle handling.
Mm-hmm. And another one mentioned is EMI Corp.
What's their focus?
They also do soft grippers, but the report points to their emphasis often being on solutions tailored for cobots.
Ah, tying into that cobot boom.
Yeah. Offering different actuation methods like vacuum or electric grips, again, really geared towards those delicate or variable items that cobots might be handling right next to people.
So it seems like the market isn't just about one dominant player, but maybe more about finding a niche.
That's definitely the impression the report gives.
Whether it's offering maximum modularity like ASS, or super specialized soft handling like soft robotics, or focusing on the cobot space like EMI.
Exactly. These companies are carving out their space by addressing these specific, distinct needs within the bigger automation wave.
So think about this. When you get a package delivered, or buy certain foods or use electronics, there's a growing chance the items involved were handled at some point by one of these sophisticated robotic hands we've been talking about.
It's true. It's happening behind the scenes.
So understanding these drivers, the challenges, the cool new trends, and who the players are, it gives you, the listener, a real insight into this hidden layer of automation that's changing manufacturing, logistics, even how your food gets to you.
Yeah, it shows how much innovation is happening right down at the robot's fingertips, so to speak, and how that enables completely new industrial capabilities.
Well, we've certainly dug deep into robotics end-of-arm tooling today.
We have, from the basics to the really cutting-edge stuff.
We looked at its core role, the forces driving its growth, the bumps in the road, those exciting future trends, and some of the companies making it happen.
All drawing from those insights provided by cognitive market research.
We've gone from just a robot hand to seeing this complex interplay of tech, market needs, and innovation.
It's a critical piece of the automation puzzle.
Definitely. So here's a final thought for you to chew on based on all this. As these EOATs get smarter, more adaptable, and way easier to swap out,
Mm-hmm.
how is that going to change the game? Not just how much work robots do, but the actual kinds of tasks we give them.
Right. Tasks that maybe seemed too complex or delicate before.
Exactly. And if automation starts handling more of these nuanced physical jobs, what does that mean for people? What kind of new human roles might pop up alongside these increasingly capable robot partners in the factories and warehouses of tomorrow?
That's a great question. Something to keep an eye on for sure.